But this was really interesting because it was a bit more of the Harry that we all sort of knew and loved back in his heyday as a member of the royal family. Something that he's actually railed against himself and said, actually I was always seen as the Joker. I felt like he was leaning into that side of his personality a little bit in both those shows. Although, interestingly, I think certainly the James Corden one had been planned for before his visit to the UK. But I would imagine that his team are very keen to sort of move on from that war of words with the palace, and then also the statement, calling out the judge, actually, and questioning the judgment itself.
Yeah, it was a little bit light after everything that had happened. Was it authentic? And I ask this as a football fan, and I'm sure we're all football fans at the moment because the World Cup's been huge views in America. Hopefully they've been watching it as well. But he was talking about football. That's very much I hate to say it, but it's very much the kind of thing for Prince William has been weighing into. Is Harry an authentic football fan?
No, he's not. And actually it'll stick in the craw for William, who is obsessed with Aston Villa. And we saw when they won that major European trophy for the first time in decades that it meant the world to him. And he's been on the Villa Fans podcast. This guy lives and breathes football. Harry doesn't. But what we're seeing is a development in the Harry brand. He's moving away from this sort of global ambassador figure, this influencer, and instead back to the clown prince, back to the entertainer, cosplay royal. And I think that's tricky because I think it doesn't sit very well with the rather sort of woke, stately Sussex brand that Meghan's been working on for years. And I don't think it sits well with the idea of Harry being back in the royal fold, lighting farts on TikTok and talking about his nether regions.
I haven't seen that video, Mark.
Well, it's going to go viral. But the bottom line is that, it's a shift, and I think it's smacks of desperation. We know that the charities are struggling at the moment. I mean, I'm hearing with Invictus, we know that they're losing sponsors. Could next year be the last Invictus? At which point, no Invictus, no Harry. It's his entire identity, that project. There's not much money coming in. And so it seems he's made a calculation, well, I'll just be this kind of public royal figure and I'll be the celebrity prince. But I don't think it's a good look.
Well, there's no doubt with Invictus, as you say, that next year is going to be incredibly important, and the funding thing will be an issue we'll be talking about in the next couple of years, because I know there has been issues, but there is money. It seems like it is going ahead, but it has to have huge exposure for it to succeed. And Harry brings that kind of exposure. It's what kind of exposure it is, and what's the impact, I suppose. With Harry, if you don't mind me saying, you've known or you've worked near or you've reported on Harry Emily for many, many years. Do you recognise this character that we saw with James Corden?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he was always very fun to cover. I remember, us going on tour with him and taking him on in a pub quiz, for example. So that is actually authentic to his personality. And I think we've not seen it as much in the last few years. I mean, he's obviously older, he's got a family, he's a grown man. A whole lot of water has gone under the bridge in terms of his family and the things that he said and done. And so I can see why it's hard to remember that element of his personality now, but I think that was always there. And I mean, you just have to look at his friendship with James Corden. I mean, he spoke at their wedding, didn't he? He was a kind of master of ceremonies at the wedding reception. That, again, is an authentic friendship that goes back many years. So I do feel that while it looks like a bit of a leap, it isn't too far away from how he used to operate. But he is doing it now from a position of relative uncertainty.
And it's a deliberate pivot, isn't it? And I think it reflects the failure of the Sussex brand, which is also why I believe that Harry and Meghan are working so hard to get back into the royal fold, because things aren't working in America. Of course, we know that Netflix, are not that interested in any of the production ideas that Harry and Meghan have. And of course, let's not forget, Ted Sarandos tore up the retailer agreement with Meghan to sell the flower sprinkles and the spread. So things are not going swimmingly in America. And I think that the decision maybe is to go down the celebrity route. And, because, I totally agree, it is the old Harry. But the question is, why is he back? And I think it's because it hasn't worked, this idea of Harry and Meghan being these global figures, sort of shoulder to shoulder with the Obamas and the Clooneys.
Can I throw something to you then, Mark? Emily's talking about the old Harry, and she's right. Just praising you as much as I possibly can. But you've seen Harry operate over a number of years and reported on for a number of years and recognised that behaviour. I'll just throw this to you: is that behaviour that we saw there with Joe Marler podcast and having a laugh with James Corden talking about football? Is that not necessarily the old Harry, but the Harry that you see when he's not with Meghan?
Yeah, I mean, it's my observation just from a body language point of view that Harry only looks really happy when he's in the UK. And he's been here a couple of times over the last 12 months and he seems relaxed here. It's been well reported that he misses his friends, misses the lifestyle. I don't think that California is the correct habitat for the lesser spotted Harry. I just don't think it's an environment in which he thrives. And so, yeah, when he's on the Joe Marler show, I thought it was quite entertaining. And it was the old Harry who, let's not forget, was the most popular member of the royal family, ahead even of Elizabeth in certain polls. So it was nice to see, but my big question is why? Because if you look at the Sussexes, and I believe led by Meghan, they are pathologically transactional and everything happens for a reason. And I don't think it's an accident that suddenly Harry has turned into this wacky entertainer.
I have to disagree with you on that. I do think that both the Marler podcast and the James Corden one featured heavy mentions of Invictus. So I do think that was part of him trying to preserve that going forward. And let's not forget, they've just announced that it will be hosted. Oh, no, that South Korea, I believe, are going to be hosting it in 2029. So they certainly
But is that nailed on? Is South Korea nailed on? 2029? I mean, that's a long time from now.
Someone will have to find money for it, won't they?
Yeah.
A lot depends on it.
Do you, well, I know I might have to dig deep. And well, it's a separate story, isn't it? But, you know, the Daily Mail, the Associated newspapers, losing that case has been a big setback too. And I just feel that Harry's running out of road. He's running out of road as this global influencer. He's running out of road as an entertainer, running out of road on the charity sector. And I think, therefore, what's he got left? It's going to be his royal links. And I think that's why we're going to see more of him.
Well, we might see more of him. We'll talk about that later on in the show, whether we'll see more of him possibly this year. But I just want to dwell a little bit further on that hectic week that we had when Harry was over, Meghan was over with Lilibet and Archie. We didn't see them, obviously. But there's been an article in People magazine, and we know the People magazine are very close links to, I would suggest, the California side of the House of Montecito. And I'll just read out what they reported this week. They said that a source known to the couple told the magazine that Meghan would have felt humiliated watching the public back and forth of the trip. What do we think of that? Do you think Meghan would have been really humiliated about what happened?
Well, it's all in doublespeak, isn't it? Because they've humiliated themselves by having a war of words with the palace about Harry's accommodation at Buckingham Palace, which didn't need to happen, but it's vintage Sussex behaviour. We saw that with the row at Kris Jenner's 70th birthday celebrations when there was this alleged opt-out in the invitation for photographs, which was swiftly rebuked by the Kardashian camp saying no such opt-out existed. Meanwhile, with Buckingham Palace, the palace is saying we offered Harry accommodation. Then we're hearing from the Sussexes there was no accommodation. Then we said yes, then it was too late. So if we talk about humiliation, you know, who's got the smoking gun on that one?
What do you think it means by humiliating? Was she gutted because she was left out of being on the front row, being seen, or what?
I think it must have been very difficult to have proposed the idea of them coming as a family and then for that to sort of be off the table, publicly at least. But I do think she's been quite careful to distance herself from certainly the court cases and the legal difficulties. That's something that I think, having founded her brand, she's really wanted to keep separate. That's been Harry's fight, hasn't it, and his battle. And also when it does come to the family stuff, I think it's a diplomatic move to sort of step into the background on that because, you know, whatever you think of her, she has been blamed for a lot of it. And I do think that whatever the rights and wrongs of that are, positioning herself away from that is a smart move.
Well, I think that it's not very wifely to abandon your husband when he's just lost a court case against the publishers of the Daily Mail. And if I was Harry, I'd feel personally very wounded. But that's, again, classic Meghan, that she doesn't want negative headlines, even if it comes from her own spouse.
Would you think this is
She hasn't got a loyal bone in her body. Look at her treatment of her father, Thomas Markle Sr. Look at her treatment of former friends like Piers Morgan, who introduced her to the UK media scene. Minutes later, she tries to get him fired from his show as a breakfast TV host.
Do you think this is why these kind of phrases were coming out? Because they realised that it wasn't a very good look to not see Meghan, if you take my point there. Because another source said that Meghan's very supportive, in quotes, of Harry, but there's a lot of sadness over how the week unfolded, that she wasn't able to be by his side. Is that genuine?
No, they generate the sadness. They are responsible for that. I mean, Harry and Meghan as a brand, it's a misery machine, which just brings conflict and negative headlines. Look at that public row with Sophie Chandauka over Sentibale, a charity that Harry's lost control of now. And Harry rebuked by the Charity Commission for making the POW public. This is what they do. It's just, the currency is conflict. But what they do is they behave abominably and then blame everyone else. So I've got no sympathy at all. And I think it's Charles that has every right to feel a sadness about how this all played out. He's been so generous giving his blessing to the royal return, and particularly seeing Harry, Meghan and the kids on royal property. And, it did look like Harry and Meghan were going to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory after that row over accommodation. But still, the king stuck with it. They had their meeting, which is why I'm still saying that Harry's essentially had a good trip, but not without its controversy.
Well, good news to everybody here, because we expect in September, as always happens every year, Prince Harry does come back to the UK. I remember last year was quite a long week as well, Emily.
Yeah.
What are we expecting in September? Will it be the same circus, the same will they, won't they? Will Meghan and the children come? Is it going to be chaos again in September?
I mean, I hope not, for our sakes, Matthew, but it's always, comes with the uncertainties, doesn't it? And a large part of that is down to the security. We've found out this week that he's continuing to pursue that case. It seems like he just won't take no for an answer. And I guess a lot will depend on that. But they have now proven to us that they can come to the UK, that it is possible for him to bring Meghan and the children. I mean, that's why they were...
They've lost that argument, haven't they?
Well, that's why they were in a royal residence, though, because that was the only place, I think, that they were sort of guaranteed that sort of setup. They won't have the freedom to come and go as they please. And I think that's at the heart of this.
It's interesting because they did have the freedom to come and go and please. And I've seen and I've read elsewhere where people have almost criticised papers or said, it's unbelievable that newspapers and everyone wasn't able to get photographs. Look, we weren't really looking. To be quite honest, if Meghan turns up with 2 young children...
That's completely off limits.
It's completely off limits. And we've seen in their, the 6-part documentary where they were talking about they were being followed by scooters and paparazzi and stuff like that. I keep saying that when they come over with the children, that's not the climate. That's just not actually going to happen. And you're right, what you were both were saying there, that it does prove that they can just come in, go to a royal residence and see the family without all the circus. But
I think actually quite cleverly, King Charles has called Harry and Meghan's bluff, because effectively I believe that the Sussexes were using the kids, leveraging Archie and Lily to engineer the royal return. And so King Charles said, brilliant, in that case, behind closed doors, at a royal property, no fanfare. Well, that's unfortunate, because I believe that the Sussexes would like to have the bells and whistles and would like to have the photograph, which would have been a PR coup for them and for their brand in America. They didn't get it. Charles is like, fine, you want me to see my grandchildren? Let's do it. But it's going to be a private affair. And that's of little returnable value to the Sussexes.